Jeff's voice is like smooth butter.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a vocal hug.
Yes. That's why we're so popular on the other podcast.
No kidding. Big Campaign is real popular.
It is.
Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Watch It Broke podcast, not including special features. I am Tristan.
And I am Marshall.
And today I thought I would mix it up since we are watching the Tim Burton classic Big Fish.
How was that mixing it up?
I never usually mention special features.
Okay. I'm sitting there thinking, like, what's
It was different.
It was different.
You're welcome, listener, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually talk about more stuff, but that just kind of fizzled out. I guess. Do you want to just get into the specs?
Yes. We got depressed.
Our banter just hit a wall. Usually there's a little bit of back and forth, but it was like, oh, I'm going to be different. And Marshall's like, yep, get into the movie, stupid. Fair enough.
No, we can come up with something.
And we?
I don't know. Mariners had their opening day. Yep. How about that baseball?
Oh, the MLB app, they finally did something to where Mariners games aren't blacked out for those who live in Seattle.
You mean without having Root TV or Root Sports?
Yeah, because
Well,
mom and dad have T-Mobile, so they get the MLB app for free. Not sponsored. So I signed them up for it. I totally didn't do that so that I could have it for free at my house now that I don't have T-Mobile anymore. And yeah, I turned on the Mariners game from the MLB app, and every year that I've gotten that perk, I haven't been able to watch the Mariners, so I leaned heavily into the fact that I'm also a big Dodgers fan. Stop going into the microphone.
I'm drinking.
And you went. Me and Jeff make fun of you behind your back about that.
You make fun of me to my face about it too.
Well, that's why I can openly say that I make fun of you behind your back with Jeff too. I'll tell you whenever I don't talk to Jeff as much as I like to, but yeah, when I talk to him, we chat a little bit, and I go, Marshall blows into the microphone, and he goes, yeah, he does. You correct one thing, and he starts another thing.
I gotta be doing something to keep you on your toes.
It's true. My sniffling's gotten better. Yeah, but now you blow into the microphone.
I'll be sure to blow into the microphone really good today for Big Campaign as well.
Oh, you're doing both today? God bless you. Yeah, so we segued from baseball to Marshall blowing into the microphone and being obnoxious.
That's the point of the podcast. I'm obnoxious.
Yeah, why is that a thing?
Because I think it's funny. Apparently other people don't, otherwise they'd listen more. If you actually find me obnoxious, please let us know at watchitbro.com.
There's not a watchitbro.com.
Oh, man.
The Watch It Bro was the only thing about that was right.
I need a post-it note with all our information on it.
If you'd like to tell Marshall he's annoying, you can do so. watchitbropodcast@gmail.com.
Or watchitbropod on Twitter.
Yes, but I'm looking forward to the day where I can give all those out and be like, and we've got merch.
That would be fun.
We don't have merch. Sorry.
We do not have merch.
Okay, well, I guess we've bantered. You want to get into the specs now?
Yeah, let's get into the specs now.
All right.
Oh no, Grimace. Sorry. Grimace fell.
Thank God you interrupted me for that.
I know. You were so concerned.
I'd forgotten you had a little plushy Grimace.
He sits on my laptop.
Okay, maybe find a better spot for him. Anyway, Big Fish was directed, and I think this is our first Tim Burton film.
It is indeed.
Tim Burton brought us such lovely films as
Big Fish,
and
Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Batman.
I was gonna comment on my thoughts on Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, let me go back.
No,
Edward Scissorhands. You can comment.
Stupid movie.
I'm annoying today.
Yeah, we're gonna see how this is gonna go. Yeah, funny, when we were watching this, Rachel and I watching this last night, getting ready for the podcast. I'm not going to say what movie she mentioned, but she mentioned a movie that is a staple of a lot of people's childhoods. And she's like, I can't wait for you guys to do that. You should do that movie. And I'm like, I'm not doing that movie because I never liked that movie. And she was very shocked.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, now I'm curious. But I'll ask you later.
Okay. I was like, should I do it? Because then if I tell you how much I hate it,
Then I'll do it.
then we probably won't do it for the podcast because that would ruin
Okay.
my final thoughts on it.
Oh, it would. Although,
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a surprise we let our final thoughts be. Sometimes we do.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we keep it a secret till the end.
Sometimes it's like, oh man, I hated Black Sheep. Let's talk about this, I guess.
Yeah. Never Ending Story. It was the Never Ending Story. I hated that movie growing up. I thought it was
know.
the
You never
dumbest.
watched it with me.
No, it was I thought it was the dumbest, most boring movie. No desire to ever watch it again.
Too bad it's
Just-
on my list.
Well, might veto that.
Oh.
That and Godzilla. Spoilers.
Which Godzilla?
Matthew Broderick.
Oh. I thought it was about time to revisit that one.
No,
Because I
hope not.
bailed on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really glad about that. No, I'd rather do that one than Never Ending Story.
Yeah.
So this screenplay was written by John August. It is based on Big Fish, a novel of mythic proportions.
It was.
I didn't know it was a book. I'm gonna read the book.
Oh, yeah.
I am. I wish I'd have figured it out sooner, because then I might have tried to read the book before, so we could compare the two. But anyway, now moving on to our laundry list of a starring cast. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi himself,
Yes.
Ewan McGregor, who, let's face it, who really cares what else he did? That was Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Poor Ewan.
Yeah, that's one of those things.
It's one of
Once
those
you're in Star Wars, it's really hard to break that character.
Yeah, unless you're already established.
No, Natalie Portman wasn't already established.
Yeah, but I'm thinking Samuel L. Jackson. Yes, Mace Windu, but it's still Samuel L. Jackson.
Sure, but I'm saying Natalie Portman, she was very unknown before the Phantom Menace and the prequel trilogy, and she broke away from that and had a lustrous career. Is that what you'd say?
Yes.
And then there was Harrison Ford.
Yeah. He broke free.
He'd broke free, and people will argue that Mark Hamill didn't, but I would dare say that he did. As far as not as far as live action roles, but in the world of voiceover.
Yeah. Yeah, he's done a lot of voiceover work.
But yeah, but I would say no, he didn't actually, because people see his face and like Luke.
Or it's Mark Hamill from Star Wars.
Yeah, and James Earl Jones,
Yeah.
but he was really voice only, so it's kind of different.
Where were we? Oh, Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor.
I'm like, we're talking about Star Wars. I'm like, no, we shouldn't be talking about Star Wars because I'm about to go on a tangent. But
We were getting there.
we were.
Moving on in our starring
Also, the
cast.
Carrie Fisher. I mean, we
She-
touched on everybody else in the movie. Just shout out
she's-
to Carrie Fisher. Yay. Okay,
she was
let's go.
Princess Leia for her whole life.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have Albert Finney, who was in other movies such as Aaron Brockovich, The Bourne Ultimatum, and Skyfall. That was James Bond.
Yes.
He was not James Bond, but he was in James Bond Skyfall.
Okay, that makes sense because Daniel Craig was James Bond.
Yes. Yes, he was. After that, we have Billy Crudup, who was in Almost Famous, and speaking of Natalie Portman, he was in Jackie, where Natalie Portman played Jackie Kennedy.
Okay.
Moving on, we have Jessica Lange, who was in the original King Kong in 1976, and starred with Robert De Niro in Cape Fear.
Oh no. Okay.
What?
Not the original King Kong.
There was a King Kong before 1976?
Yes, there was a King Kong in 1932.
There was, wasn't there?
That's the original one. The one in 1936 had Jeff Bridges in it.
The one in 1936 had Jeff Bridges?
No, I said the one in 1976 had Jeff Bridges.
That's better.
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about this podcast is you not only learn stuff, but you remember stuff, and sometimes you
And-
can
and-
say stuff.
Sometimes I say, actually.
But
But and sometimes we have our inside jokes that most people don't get. Ah.
That's also true.
It
That's
is
just because we're brothers.
true.
Moving on. Next, we have Helena Bonham Carter, who was in
Yeah.
A Room with a View, and apparently in the Harry Potter series.
Yes, she was also in Ocean's 8.
There's an Ocean's 8.
There is.
And
Um,
I know how that works. They're not numbered. They're numbered for the amount of people in the crew,
yes,
not. Yeah, that's why it makes them really hard to follow. Also, fun fact, sequentially makes them hard to follow
I suppose.
because the numerical title doesn't give you any idea.
I mean, 11, 12, 13, 1, 2, 3.
Fun fact, Helena Bonham Carter was married to Tim Burton during the filming of this, and married to Tim Burton from 2001 to 2014.
Okay. Probably why she's been in a lot of his stuff.
It is why she's been in a lot of his stuff. After her, in our starring cast, comes Alison Lohman, who was in such films as Matchstick Man, the same year that this came out, and Flicka.
Is that the dolphin movie?
No, that would be Flipper.
Oh, yeah.
Flicka was a horse.
I was close with animal.
My pal, based on the book My Pal Flicka, which is the book that Moe Szyslak in The Simpsons would sneak off and secretly read to kids at the hospital.
Oh, there's your fun fact. Go Mo.
It's not Moe's not a real person. Moving on. After that, we have Robert Guillaume, who voiced Rafiki in The Lion King. This is probably his most famous role.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And then we have Marion Cotillard, who was in Inception and The Dark Knight Rises.
I didn't see the first one
The first one, what? Oh,
that you
Inception?
mentioned. Yeah, I did not see Inception. I saw The Dark Knight Rises. It was okay.
It wasn't great.
No,
I'm kind of sick of them doing Batman.
I like good Batman.
I like good Batman too, but how many origin stories of Batman do we need?
I mean, they really like killing his parents.
Yeah.
I don't think we
Moving
yet.
on. Or do you want to finish your thought?
No, we're good. I don't need to talk about the death of Batman's parents again.
Nope. Next we have Steve Buscemi, the great Steve Buscemi, who has
Yes.
been, man, he's done a lot of things. Who was in Airheads, if you recall, our earlier podcast.
Yes, talk about a Bamf.
He was also in pretty much every Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah, him and Sandler are good friends.
He was in The Big Lebowski.
Great movie.
It was a pretty good movie. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'd feel about it now because the language is pretty.
Yeah.
John
Also,
Goodman's not very nice.
true. Also, Steve Buscemi, volunteer firefighter, and was there during 9/11.
Yeah, thanks for stealing the fun fact I was about to go into.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Steve Buscemi since we didn't last time, but yes, he was a volunteer firefighter, and most people don't know that he volunteered and went back in and helped during the 9/11 attacks. He did so anonymously or very discreetly, and never sought praise or anything for it.
Fun fact: he still works with the New York City Fire Department to this day.
Fun, because he's real old,
He's not that old.
60 something. We're gonna look him up now, aren't we?
I'm stalling for a second. He was born in 57, so 60.
He's 67 years old.
Okay, that was good fast math there.
Oh, he was in Reservoir Dogs?
He was Mr. Pink. Probably a movie we won't be doing for the podcast.
Definitely a movie we won't be doing for the podcast. I've also never seen Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, it's a good one.
And rounding out our starring cast
Okay.
is Danny DeVito
Yes.
from Taxi.
Good pull.
I thought you'd like that. Like, what obscure Danny DeVito reference can I make? It's like, I could go Matilda, but everyone knows Matilda. I could go Penguin from Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah. He's
That'd have been a fun
also
one.
been in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I could have gone. He was the dancer in Friends for Phoebe's bachelorette party.
Yes, he played the ringmaster in the live action Dumbo a few years back.
Yeah.
Incidentally, also directed by Tim Burton.
Yes, and fun fact, I don't know. It's relevant. The only version of Dumbo I've seen. I never saw the cartoon.
You've never seen the cartoon of Dumbo? Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the you've seen Dumbo. I mean, we didn't own it. Maybe you didn't. I don't think
Yeah.
Mom liked it very much, so we didn't have
No.
it.
Yeah. I don't recall ever watching the cartoon of Dumbo.
That's why we also didn't have Pinocchio and Peter Pan.
Yeah, I'd still bring up Peter Pan because I loved that movie and I wanted it. And Renee had it, and so I'd always ask because every time I go over to Renee's or Renee would babysit me, we'd watch Peter Pan, and I'd come home and I'd be like, "Mom, we have Peter Pan, but Renee has it, and I love it." And Mom would be like, "Well, watch it at Renee's house then." And I still don't think I've gotten a straight answer on why we never had it. She
I
just
think
kind of
it's just
goes,
because she didn't care for Peter Pan the movie.
Well, but she loves the ride so much, and she tells me she likes the movie.
Oh well,
So I don't think I've ever gotten anything more than I don't know. We just never got it.
interesting.
Anyway, Big Fish is the movie today, and
I'm
that
gonna
was what?
I'm gonna interrupt you and throw out one more name because I was pretty sure this is why you picked this movie. Missy Pyle's in this.
You know, I had forgotten Missy Pyle was in this. I was gonna bring her up when she showed up. So
Okay,
thanks for
I,
wrecking that.
I saw I was watching when I was watching. I saw the name pop up on the credits. I'm like, that's why Tristan picked it. He went on a Missy Pyle rant during Galaxy Quest, and like we need another Missy Pyle movie.
Nope. She showed up, and I went, "Oh yeah, she's in this." She had nothing to do with the decision.
Okay.
But Big Fish was released December 10th, 2003, not 2023 like I wrote down in my notes.
Yeah, it's a little bit older than that.
Yeah, so the version we have it on DVD, and I turned it on last night. I was playing it, and it had trailers at the beginning of the DVD because they used to still have that back in them days.
Yeah.
And I saw, I forget what the first movie was now, but the trailer for Spider-Man 2,
Ooh.
Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2 popped
Yeah.
up, and I was like, "Oh man, this is an old one." And it had a budget of 70 million, and it brought in 123 million at the box office.
Okay.
And that rounds out our specs.
I think so.
Unless you have anything you want to add.
No, not at the moment.
Okie dokie.
Ooh.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg was originally attached to this movie.
Was he?
Yes.
That would have been probably worse.
But he backed out, and Tim Burton came on board.
I'm not saying Tim Spielberg. Steven Spielberg wouldn't have done a good job with the movie. I think this is one of those tales because of how,
Whimsical.
yeah, and the fact that like the novel is even called a mythical, has mythical in the title. I think it needed the Tim Burton touch for it.
I think he did. Now we'll get into our final thoughts later, but yes, I think Tim Burton worked well for this movie.
Yes. So we start with the Columbia logo.
I've
Goes
got
Marshall.
you doing the logos now.
I do it just for you
I appreciate that.
because I know how much you like logos.
I do,
You watch movies just for the logos.
mostly.
Mm-hmm. But that changes into a lake with fish. And then we see a big fish that we've kind of followed swimming around.
You said the name of the movie.
They say the name of the movie in this quite a few times.
I know.
But we get a narration over the top, and we hear the legend of the big fish about how some fishes are uncatchable.
Yes.
And I like what they did with the narrating here, actually. It's pretty good because it gives you a good intro into the movie, and then we start seeing. It starts off, it's Ewan McGregor narrating over the top of it in the beginning.
Yes, and I do like how throughout the movie we get different voices narrating
It's depending on what
little story's being told and who's telling it, basically.
and where in
But-
time that we are.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I thought this movie was going to be hard to do, is because it's a lot of it is it's stories within stories and stories on top of stories, and it's almost like a labyrinth through time.
Yeah.
Like the first time I watched it was kind of hard to follow,
Okay.
but yeah, so we get kind of this clip shots and a very Tim Burton fashion. I think he likes to do that in a lot of his movies, where he'll tell you a story and then have it be over a visual to save time.
Yeah, yeah, you get the like in Sleepy Hollow, you get the story of the headless horseman in kind of those narrate. You get the narration, or even at the start of Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah,
The same. You get the little narration and the visual.
yeah, which I do enjoy and appreciate about how Tim Burton does things. But anyway, we start going through, and it shows him telling the story to run a campfire to a bunch of I guess they're Boy Scouts on a camping trip,
Yeah,
and you can see there's one kid off to the side who's like seems bored
yeah,
with the story to kind of setting the tone. And then I like the cut here where they're talking about he's talking about catching the fish, and at that point he goes, "You got to give the fish something they want," and he holds up his hand, and one kid's like, "Oh, if you gave him your finger," and he goes, "No, gold," because he's pointing to his wedding ring.
right, right. Your finger? No, you little jerk! Don't wreck my
Easy,
story.
easy now.
No,
But
he's much nicer than I am.
he is. He is. You are not very nice. But it switches. It cuts out Ewan McGregor, and then we get it's Albert Finney, who plays
Yes,
adult Edward, and then he is telling the story or continuing the story,
yes.
which
And
is
you get the same story told with two different narrators, which is really cool.
it is really cool and very it's hard to pull off too. I would say.
Yeah, because it can be a little jarring if you don't know what's going on. But I think they
Yeah,
do a good job of overlaying as the voice goes over. You see the older, and
you
it
see,
helps convey that they're the same person.
right? You see Edward aging along the way,
Yeah, and
and
then you
time
see
moving
his
forward, and then you see his son just fed up with this man and his stories.
yeah.
And we are at the son's wedding, son William.
Yeah, and my first thought was like, that guy's a jerk.
With the kid?
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's so funny because you see this type of father in cinema and film a lot. Roseanne too.
yeah,
Dan's dad was very much like this, a traveling salesman and a storyteller,
yes,
and,
yes,
and everybody but the kid likes his stories.
yep,
And that's the whole unfortunate point of like this kid has dealt with this his whole life. He's over it at this point. He wants something, different. And everyone else is like, "Oh, you should appreciate your dad's stories." And he's like,
right. And I mean, not to bury the lead of the movie, but the big reason he doesn't like the stories is he feels his dad's lying to him about everything.
"Right." But yeah, so that's it, and it the speech goes into it. That's essentially his wedding toast to his son and now daughter-in-law.
Yep.
And I don't know. I think he brings it around to a good point.
Yeah, I
Is
do. I do too. I mean,
where ends up with sometimes to catch the uncatchable, you have to give her a wedding ring.
yeah,
You know, the symbolic of you have to commit to her with your life,
yeah,
which is great. And William's already out of the room, and then we cut to them. They're arguing, essentially. They
yeah,
are,
yeah. They're
this,
outside.
and the son's mad, and he feels like dad took all the attention from him, and he's being mean, and you kind of don't like him, if I'm
Yeah,
being honest. He's not very likable at the beginning of the movie, and then we find out that after the wedding, he doesn't talk to his dad for 3 years.
yep. It's I don't know what thought I had there. I mean,
Okay.
it's. I was gonna say something like, I don't. I mean, they don't talk to 3 years. They fight. They don't talk.
Well,
It happens.
he says they indirectly talk.
Right, right. Because every time he calls, his mom says he's either in the pool or he's out driving, and usually he's just standing there next to her.
Right. And she writes letters and whatnot, and so he knows kind of what's going on. They just
Right.
doesn't talk to dad.
They just don't speak. They get updated,
Yeah.
um,
But then we get
but
into
the son's mad about the story and everything, and Edward the dad is hurt basically.
yeah, no, that about sums it up.
Yeah.
Then we get into a narration again, and it's Will telling the story of his dad
Hmm. Yeah.
about how he was and we cut to, yeah, this is where we get Ewan McGregor playing Edward Bloom, the dad,
Yes.
and he is in the lake fishing, and we see him catch the fish and get his wedding ring back at this point, and then we cut to his birth with some narrations from William Bloom, the son, over the top of it,
Yes.
and he talks about how his dad tells stories, and oh gosh, what does he say? Some is exaggerated, and most of which never actually happened.
Yeah.
And then we see a baby launched out of a woman. It's sliding down a hall.
Yes. Umbilical cord free. Just boom.
Just yeah, shot out like a cannon and sliding down a hallway. Which is, I think it's done to set the tone of every tale, everything about Edward Bloom is larger than life.
Yes. It definitely the setup of that. That's the setup.
But then we cut from there to present day, and the phone rings. William answers it. It's his mom. We find out that his dad has cancer, and it's not looking good, so they're ending chemo.
Yeah.
So William's gonna go home, and he's got a good wife because she's like, "Yeah, I'm going with you,"
Yeah.
and just it's non-negotiable. She's just like, "Yeah, no, this is what's happening."
Yep. And he's decided to end the freeze out.
Yep. And then we cut back to the past, hearing the tale about the witch of where were they from? It's like, oh, I'll remember the name of where they're from.
Alabama.
Sure. That's a state. That was a little. There was a town they're from.
There is a town. I just don't remember it.
I thought for sure I would remember the name of the town. Ashton. He was from a little town called Ashton. Ashton, yes. But there was a tail witch.
Yes, with a glass eye.
And that glass eye would tell you how you die.
Yes.
And
this
there's
witch-
what?
I was just gonna say the witch was played by Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes, it was. She was. But we see a group of little kids, about 5 of them, going through the woods to go visit this witch at night. And we get a very young Miley Cyrus in that mix.
We do. Surprise!
And so Edward is there, and he's the one that really wants to see, or he gets dared to go get the eye.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
he does.
Two of the boys, or one of the boys, other boys there say that the witch keeps it in a jar on the nightstand. He can just go in there and get it. He's like, fine, I will.
Yeah, so he goes up there, knocks on the door,
Yeah.
and brings the eye back, witch attached.
Yep. He's charming and convinced her to come.
Yeah, he goes, I got people that want to see your eye, and she's like, yeah, okay.
Like, sure, whatever. Hey, look, it's kids.
Yeah. And so she flips up her eye patch and shows the 2 older boys. I guess they're older, right?
One of them's older.
Okay.
They're brothers. I think one of them's his age and one of them's older.
Yeah, so we see how they both die.
Yep.
And then
What?
What?
I was just gonna say we watched one of them fall off a ladder while changing the light bulb at like 70.
90? Oh, 80, maybe.
Yeah, we'll split the difference. Say he was 80.
And the other one has a heart attack, young.
Yep.
And then Ed walks the witch back to her door, and he's contemplating what it might mess you up knowing how you were going to die because you'd be constantly afraid of it. But at the same time, it would be kind of a blessing to know.
Yeah, because you're like, okay, I know I'm going to survive this. I can just get through it.
Yeah, because you knew everything else you knew, it wouldn't kill you. And he decides that he wants to know. And so she flips up her eye patch, and he goes, huh, so that's how I go.
Yeah. And it leaves it at that. We don't see anything. He's just like, huh, okay.
Yeah. And then we go back to present day, where they arrive back home. What are you doing?
I heard a noise at my door. I looked over to see if one of my cats were going to jump in.
Oh.
I looked back and you looked at me. Then I heard the noise again, looked over again.
Anyway, they arrive back at Will's home, and they're getting kind of unpacked and settling in. William asks about his father and how much time is left, and Mom is like, yeah, we don't talk about that. Like, okay. But she sends him up to Ed's room with an Ensure and says, make him drink it. And so
Yeah.
Will goes up there and sits down and makes him a deal. Like, you drink half of this, I'll drink the other half, and we'll call it good.
Yeah.
But they start chatting, and William essentially starts telling him that he just wants the true versions of all the stories.
Right. He's like, I don't know you at all. You've only ever told me these tall tales and lies my whole life. It's great when you're a kid, but
Uh,
you're still telling me.
And yeah, you don't keep them going when your kid's 15, 20, 30. But so, and this part was interesting to me. So it cuts back to William being sick in bed and a young Edward talking to him
Yeah.
and telling him to stop complaining about being in bed because he was in bed for 3 years because his body grew really, really fast. And so he was laid up for 3 years.
Yep.
And then after that, he got out and essentially could do no wrong. He was the best of everything. He was the best sports ball player
Yep.
and then was essentially the hero of the town.
He played a bunch of sports ball too.
Yeah. Played all the sports balls.
Yep. Yep. Base sports ball, basketball sports ball, foot sports ball.
And he always it kept cutting to this other guy who was not good at the sports balls
Yeah, yeah. It was the older of the two brothers that
from the
went
eye
to,
incident.
went to the witch house. Yes.
Yeah. But eventually we get to the giant that arrives in Ashton and the town wants to do something to deal with this giant.
Yeah,
And
because he
Edward,
keeps eating everything in town. The sheeps, the dogs, the kids.
he doesn't eat the kids.
I know, but
But then Edward's like, hey, I'll go talk to him. I'll try to get him to move along because he knows that's not how he goes.
yep.
So we cut to Edward at this really spooky looking cave, and he meets the giant. The giant's name's Carl.
Yep, there's a bunch of bones outside it too. It looks they do a good job making it look all spooky.
They do. They really do.
Crows and whatnot.
Yeah, but he talks to Carl. He finds out that Carl is a gentle giant, and he's just too darn big and hungry.
Yep, yep. He just doesn't have a place to be and is looking for food,
Yeah, Carl seems very nice. Could use a haircut and a makeover.
which we get shortly.
We do get shortly after Edward convinces Carl to leave town with him, because Edward
Yeah,
wants to leave too.
he just convinces Carl and tells Carl that maybe you're just not too big. Just this town is too small for you.
Yeah. And so we cut to Edward getting the key to the city. Carl's gotten a very nice haircut and a new suit, I guess.
Yep.
Turns out the town likes him all right. And then they move along their way. And as they're getting escorted out of town by Shriners, it looks like.
Yep. Little Shriner convention going on. I mean,
Yeah.
Shriner parade. I don't know. There's Shriners in this town, and there's like 6 of them in little cars.
Yeah.
Probably all the oldest people live in the town.
And the witch is there to see him off.
Yeah. Yep. And he goes over to say goodbye, or she waves him over to tell him something too.
Yeah. Did you write down what she told him?
No, did you?
Me either.
Oh, okay.
I haven't even a clue of what she says. I apologize to all my listeners.
We can cut that out.
We could. It's funnier to leave it in. But yeah, we get some narration over the top as they're walking, and we find out there's an old road and there's a new road, and the new road's all paved, and no one takes the old road anymore. And it's been so long since anyone took the old road that now there's a bunch of tales about it. And Edward wants to go see if those tales are true, since he had no intention of ever returning to Ashton.
Yes. Yes. His plan is to
Go
explore,
on,
live life to the fullest, and
go on to bigger and better things.
yes. Yes. And when he says he wants to take the old road, he tells Carl to take the new road, and it'll be at the end. Carl's like, "You're just trying to ditch me."
Basically. So he gives him his backpack as collateral.
Yeah, he's like, I'm really not trying to ditch you. I just want to go this way, and I don't know why he doesn't say just come with me. We'll take this road, but
Maybe he doesn't, if there's danger, he doesn't want to put Carl in danger.
there's possibly.
Because he knows that he'll survive. He doesn't know if Carl will.
True. He's like, you just stay safe on the paved road, and I'll go down this creepy one.
Yeah, because I know how I go, and none of this kills me. So
Yeah, it's creepy road away.
so it goes down this dark and scary path, and
Yeah,
it's dark and scary.
Carl's cool with the arrangement when he gets his backpack.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay, you're not trying to ditch me. I'll see you at the other side. Bye, friend.
And oh man, I would not have gone down this path.
You would have turned around at the spiders.
Quickly would not have been a second thought. Would have been that's some thick spider webbage too.
It is. It's very thick spider web, and there's a sign that says "jumping spiders," and these spiders are jumping everywhere. I mean, they're tarantula sized. It's not like they're Jumanji sized or 8-legged freak sized, but still, they're a good size spider.
All spiders are scary.
Eh.
Yeah, I guess. As I've gotten older, my phobia has mellowed out quite a bit.
Jumping spiders are fine.
They are kind of adorable,
They are.
which is weird. I never thought I'd consider a spider adorable. Anyway, so he runs through the spider web.
Yeah, he's booking it
Yeah, and he's got spiders all over him.
like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, at least it's not snakes.
No, but these spiders are a little more active than the ones in Indiana Jones. So,
I haven't seen Indiana Jones in a long time.
well, and he's grabbing them off him and throwing them.
Yeah, but he arrives in a town. There's a little town in the middle of nowhere in the woods.
It's called Spectre.
It's called Spectre.
Ah,
And there's like a clothesline out front with a bunch of shoes thrown over it.
that could have been a clothesline. I thought it was a telephone line.
Might have been a telephone line. And well, it's weird. This town is weird.
Yes. So this movie is. I mean, we've touched on a little bit. His dad's telling tall tales, and you can try and pick out the truth in the story versus what was exaggerated or things like that. I'm like, Spectre's weird, just all around.
Yeah.
And we can touch more about this on the end because it's revisited. But this first interaction of Spectre is very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And like when I first saw the shoes, I thought there was like some kind of symbolism of like being like, take off your shoes and stay a while.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's there. But I mean, the fact that he gets there and they've got his name written down, like, "Hey, you're early." It's
Yeah.
like, it's just like, did he walk into heaven? Is that what this is supposed to be? Is
Right. Yeah. Because everyone's dressed in white and they got no shoes.
right?
And everyone's like ridiculously happy and it's all peaceful. And
Exactly. It's like, where,
Wh-
what?
what is this place?
What is this place? This is where we get to meet Missy Pyle, though.
Yes. But before that, we have a guy on a porch playing dueling banjos from Deliverance.
We do. In a very juxtaposition of what Deliverance, the scene from Deliverance looked like to what this looks like.
Yeah, it's slightly unsettling. I think they did it on purpose just to set an unsettling tone.
They did. Definitely that was the choice. Like, okay,
Yeah. But they said that they're expecting him. Not yet, but they were expecting him. Then he's over at the mayor's house eating pie with Steve Buscemi's character, Northern Winslow,
yes, a famous poet.
the famous poet, which I forgot to mention earlier when they were talking about, I have it in my notes too, the old road. No one they knew of ever took the old road except the famous poet from Ashton, Northern Winslow. And we
Yes.
find out that he ended up at the town of Spectre and has stayed there. And so they're eating, it looks like apple pie, the best pie in the world.
Yeah, they're eating pie. They're at the table. They're all in rocking chairs.
It looks like a very nice place.
It does.
And it made me want pie.
That's fair. When you
Yeah.
when you
Getting
see pie like that, you're like, oh man, that looks good.
Yeah, well, I never had a sweet tooth until I got old, and now it's like, man, I could eat.
Craving sugar.
Yeah, why did that start? I was never a big sugar eater. Now it's like I see pie in a movie and I'm like, yeah. Or I see
You
cookies and I go, I can get some cookies.
you were never a big sugar eater.
Not once puberty hit.
Soda.
Different.
How's that different?
I never. I
Bowl
like
of ice cream.
okay, a bowl of ice cream and soda pop is different than pie and cookies and whatnot. I was never big into that kind of stuff.
Okay, this doesn't mean you didn't like sugar.
You know, I'm not gonna sit here and listen to you just be right, okay?
I think you just didn't like pastries.
So while he's at the table, a little girl comes and steals his shoes and runs.
Yes. Yeah.
W- Her name's Jenny.
Jenny.
And unlike our other Jenny on this podcast, giving people shoes, she steals shoes.
Yes. There is a shoe theme with the Jennies in this podcast.
Now we have to find another movie with the Jenny that has a thing with shoes.
Yep. You got to keep it up.
But she takes his shoes and she throws it over with the rest of the shoes. And now he's like, hey, I needed those. And she's like, no, you don't. The grass is nice and you're never gonna leave.
Yes, that is the theme of Spectre. People don't leave, which is why the famous poet's still there.
That's right. Why would you leave though? There's free pie.
Exactly.
And it's nighttime now, and Edward and Northern are hanging out by a lake. And Northern shows Edward the poem he's been working on for 12 years, and Edward's like, it's 3 lines long, and it took you 12 years, which totally offends Northern.
It does.
And then we see a lady in a lake.
Yeah,
And
Northern leaves. We see the lady in the lake.
And then there's a snake.
Yep.
A snaky snake heading towards the lady. Edward jumps in and swims after the snake to save the lady from the snake.
Yep.
And as he gets close, the lady jumps into the water and turns into a fish. We see her turn into a fish. Edward doesn't notice.
Right. Edward just sees her go into the water and disappear.
Right. And then Jenny yells from the bank, because Jenny's out there apparently, and says, "There's leeches in there."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But there was a lady." And she goes, "Was she naked?" And he goes, "Yeah." And Jenny goes, "No, that was a fish."
Yes.
And explains that the fish turns up as different things to different people. One guy saw his childhood dog.
Yeah. It's a magic fish.
It is a magic fish. But Jenny walks him back to town.
Yep.
We find out Jenny likes him.
Yeah, she's got a little crush on him.
Uh-huh. We find out that he's 10 years older.
Yep. He's
And
18. She's 8.
She's 8, and that's apparently the mathematical perfection to her,
It's just easy.
I guess. But then we get a really, really weird town dance party.
Oh, really quickly touching on the when they find out how old each other are. She's like, that's a pretty big gap. Or he mentions it's a pretty big gap. He goes, yeah, but when I'm 18, you'll be 28, and then when I'm 28, you'll be 38, and when I'm 38, you'll be 48, and that's not that big of a difference, right?
Yeah, she does math it out, and he comments that she's good at arithmetic.
Yeah. But I mean, 38 to 48, you think about that, you're like, no, that's not that bad.
No, it's not. Not great, but it's not bad.
No, but when you look at the other way, you're like 8 to 18. Ugh.
And he comments on that too. He goes, "I guess it's pretty big right now." Then we get to the really weird dance party.
Yes. The weird dance party. Everybody's dancing. Edward gets pulled in, and then all the ladies dance with Edward.
Right. Well, and then they're in a circle, just spinning in circles. It's Edward, Missy Pyle. I don't
Yep.
think her character ever gets a name. The mayor, and is it Jenny that are all spinning?
Yeah.
And then you get Steve Buscemi just like in the background behind, trying to pop into the frame. Steve Buscemi is hysterical here.
He is. Well, he reads a poem too. He's sitting there and he's got 5 ladies looking over his shoulder, like roses are red, violets are blue.
I like Spectre.
Basically.
And then he gets up and leaves. And they look unimpressed.
Yeah. Spectre is great. Bye.
But apparently he is Spectre's poet. He is the
Yep.
town poet. And yeah. And when he gets up and leaves, that's when he joins the dance circle and just kind of it's weird. And I think and Edward starts to notice that it's weird here.
Yes. He
You can
thinks
see
that's weird.
You can see his face change with everyone just like smiling at him, and he's like, "I have to go, and I have to go now."
Yeah, it's time for me to leave.
And it confuses everybody because nobody leaves Spectre.
Spectre is such a perfect town. Oh, you didn't watch Shrek enough.
No, I didn't.
There's a little
Are we
kiosk
gonna do
out.
it?
Yes,
Yeah?
we're gonna do that. There's a little
Okay.
kiosk outside of Lord Farquaad's castle, and it's called Duloc. And they press the thing, and it sings that little song about how great Duloc is. Anyway, there's the reference.
Chris Farley was the original voice of Shrek.
He was. I've heard audio of it, and it
I
doesn't
have
sound
too.
right.
It does not sound right.
Because it just sounds like Chris Farley.
Well, that's what it was. That's what it was
I
going to be.
I know. It's like, oh, it's Tommy Boy as an ogre.
Anyway, try to stay focused here.
Yeah.
But Jenny makes him promise that he'll come back, and he does. He promises Jenny he'll come back when he's supposed to.
Right. And they tell him he can't leave because he doesn't have his shoes. His feet will hurt. He's like, that's fine. I'll deal with it.
He's ready to go.
Yeah, he's like, it's time.
I gotta get out. I got to get out of here.
He's been there a day, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Been
But
there a
then
day, saw a weird fish lady, and then got freaked out by a dance.
yeah. But then he ends up getting lost in the woods. Eventually finds his way and returns to Carl.
Yes, he loses his key to the city, which he's had around his neck this whole time.
Yes.
And while he was lost, which is great, it's a great scene because these trees look like the trees from Wizard of Oz. Because
They do a little bit.
They start attacking him. He's like, "Wait a minute, I don't die here. This is fine." And the trees drop him instantly.
It's grappled and it looks like he's gonna get killed by the tree. And he's like, "Wait a minute, this isn't how I go." And then the tree's like, "Oh yeah, he's right." And they let him go, and
It's like, dang, he knows. He doesn't.
he
We can't scare him anymore.
yeah, he goes on his way. We cut to present day, and they're having family dinner, and probably the most awkward family dinner I've seen in a movie.
You remember the ref, right?
I try not to.
But that was an awkward family dinner. Anyway,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Well, just the way it's shot too, I think, adds to the awkwardness of it.
Yeah.
Because you got Edward there telling Josephine, William's wife,
Yes.
the story about the Congo
About the people in the Congo that speak French.
that speak French, and how you'd be lucky to get 4 words of English out of them.
Yeah.
And he doesn't blink once, and he's just staring. It's weird. It's a choice. He made a choice. And then William chimes in with that Josephine actually went to the Congo, because Edward's clearly telling a tall tale.
Right.
And all he says is, "Oh, so you know then."
Yeah.
And she lets him have it.
Yeah.
Not in the way of where she corrects him or anything.
Right.
She just smiles at him and she enjoys the story and just lets him have his story. You were gonna fun fact?
Fun fact: the Dominican Republic of Congo, French, is the official language and is widely spoken.
So it's not wrong.
No.
But that is within the theme of the movie is you never really know what's real and what's not.
Right. Because you hear people in the dead of Congo speak French, like that's in the middle of Africa. That doesn't sound right.
Right.
But
It's true.
it's true.
Huh.
And she knows.
She does. That's why she didn't say anything.
And she's French.
She is French. Took me way longer than I'm proud of to realize that.
The accent didn't give it away.
Could not place it. It's like lovely accent. New Jersey. So we cut to later that night, and Josephine comes in to check on Ed, and Ed starts off with a very fun joke, telling her a very fun joke.
Yes.
Are you confused?
Yes.
Where he said he had a dream that a crow came and visited him and told him his aunt was going to die, and then they woke up the next morning and his aunt was dead. Or he told his parents about it, and then later that night his aunt died, and then then he had another dream where the crow came back and told him his father was going to die, and so he told his parents that, and his father was really worried the whole day, and then finally comes home from work and looks like he had a rough day, and Dad comes home and tells his mom, "I just had the worst day," and the mom goes, "You think you had a bad day? The milkman dropped dead on the porch."
Yes.
You knew that. You just wanted me to tell the joke, didn't you?
I did.
Cutting it out.
Oh.
It's not appropriate.
It's funny.
So then he starts the story of how he met his wife. And Josephine's all ready to listen.
Yes.
And so we're at the circus. And we meet Colossus, who is the circus giant.
Yes.
And Edward is... And this is also where we see Danny DeVito.
Correct.
And we also see another familiar face, Deep Roy, who, if you remember, in Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he played every single Oompa Loompa.
He did. That was not a good movie.
Another one with Missy Pyle.
Yes.
What do you mean it was not a good movie?
The Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one.
I only saw it the once, so it wasn't. I don't think it was great, but it was fun. You had to, you had to forget about Gene Wilder.
I suppose.
As the great Charlie Sheen once said, what would possess them to remake that movie? Gene Wilder was perfect.
Money,
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do that one for the podcast.
maybe. But Deep Roy played Mr. Soggy Bottom.
Yes. And he was in a couple other movies that I forgot. So I'll cut that out too.
I like how we say that, and then every time you listen to the podcast, you're like, I'll just cut that out. You didn't.
Because it's so much funnier to leave it in. For some reason, I'm like, I'll cut it out. Then I listen back to it and I go, gosh, it'd be funny if I just left that in there. So I leave it in there.
To cut that count.
Anyway, so Colossus is up doing his thing, and Edward whistles at the spotlight guy
Yeah.
and introduces his giant who makes Colossus look like a normal sized human being.
Yeah, because Carl's like 15 feet tall. I don't
Yeah.
think we ever said how big he was, but every time they're standing next to each other, he comes like up to his fingertips. Carl's big.
Right. Carl is big. Yes.
Danny DeVito's the ringmaster, and Mr. Soggy Bottom's a clown.
Yeah. But at this point, everything just kind of stops and they all stare at Carl. And Mr. Soggy Bottoms realizes what's going on. And so he cues the music, and everybody at the circus comes out and performs. And Danny DeVito sends everybody off. They close the circus because of this.
Yes, it is a. It's like, look at my giant. Like, oh, that's not a giant. This is a giant.
Well, that's
Oh! Like, holy crow, that is a giant.
yeah.
Get out of here. I'm processing this.
And then Mr. Soggy Bottoms gets the contract, and Danny DeVito asks him some questions that makes you wonder about the character of Danny DeVito's. Amos is his name.
Yes. Well, I mean, he runs a circus in the
1950s.
50s?
I think it's about the 1950s, yeah.
Trying to figure out a time frame on this movie. Yeah, 50s ish. But I mean, circus owners weren't the best people usually.
Yeah.
Not
Because
every,
he
not,
has
not
some-
nothing against all circus owners, but you hear stories. Barnum
Yeah.
Bailey was kind of a jerk.
But yeah, so if he's ever heard of involuntary servitude,
Basically, you're in the
And
circus now forever.
and other phrases that don't sound like they're going to be very good for Carl. But Carl signs the contract.
Yeah, he seems happy.
Yeah.
He's got a job.
He does. And then Edward meets Carl meets his destiny, and Edward meets his almost.
Oh,
He says.
Edward sees his from afar.
Well, and then time stops, because time stops apparently when you meet the love of your life. And we get a great shot of everything frozen and Edward walking to this woman in a blue dress.
Yes, it is a fantastic shot. It's done really well.
I was going to say, fun fact,
I like fun facts.
none of it was CGI,
Even the popcorn.
even the popcorn. The popcorn was set up on a breakaway string,
Yeah,
so when he would hit it, it would break off and fall.
that's cool.
Everything was set up, and all the people there were holding position. Everything was completely set up. No CGI or computer technology was used for that whatsoever.
Cool, because it looked really well done, and I figured the popcorn at least had to be, but that's really cool. I mean, it was what 2003, so you're still getting the early years of CGI. Some of it looks really good and still holds up. Some of it is like, ee.
Yeah. But Tim Burton has been famous for his non-use of computer graphics.
Correct. Yes,
and his propping.
For the most part, yeah.
So, but after time stops, when it starts up again, it moves really, really fast to catch up, and so you see that.
yeah. That just everybody books it and, like, runs from him.
Well, but if you notice, I don't know if you noticed that. What's her name? But she's staring at him still, and she literally gets almost carried off by the crowd pushing her.
Yes. You don't remember his wife's name?
Sandra.
Yes. Okay.
But we haven't named her yet. Her name's Sandra Templeton. You'll know.
Yes. Lady in the blue dress right now.
Right now, yes. And so, yes, Carl signs. Ed comes back talking to Amos, and he's like, he met the woman he's gonna marry. Unfortunately, he didn't quite meet her, and he doesn't know where to find her. And Amos got jokes.
Amos does have jokes.
He says that that's funny because most people actually get married before they lose their wives.
Yeah.
That was clever. But apparently Amos knows who she is, and Edward is desperate, and so he makes him a deal that he will work for him for free in the exchange of one bit of information about this woman a month.
Yes. Yeah. You don't have to pay me. You just tell me about her. And he's like, that's a deal I can do.
And so we get a fun little, would you call it a montage?
Yes. Yes, I would call this a montage.
And it is fantastic because he's hopelessly in love doing all these ridiculous, no fun chores. And Amos is giving him very generic information.
Yeah, a lot of it's just like, hey, she likes music. Like,
And he's just soaking it up. Well, I mean, there's a couple good nuggets of information there, like her favorite flower is a daffodil.
yeah, and it goes to show that the information's accurate. It's just
Vague.
vague. Some of it can be really vague. Like, does she like music? Like, yeah, I think so. Sure, she likes music.
She's going to college.
Yes, that is a piece of information.
And he's like, oh, wow, college.
She'll do great.
Yeah. But one thing I glossed over before he agreed to work for Amos is Amos pretty much tears him down pretty good of how he's like, he might have been hot stuff in Hickville, but out here he's got no job, nothing, no plan. He's got nothing but the clothes on his back, and he's like, I got a backpack full of clothes. And then he turns around and goes, someone stole my backpack.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and he's like, but if you gave me a job, then I'd have a job, and that would help me with my plan to marry the woman in the blue dress.
Yes.
So now we're back at the montage.
Okay, but he during his speech he tells them, "You may have been a big fish in that little pond you came from, but this is the ocean."
Big fish.
Yes,
They say the thing
they do several times.
several times. Yes, but yes. So he's getting all this information, and a long, long time goes by, and
Yes.
finally,
3 years.
Yes, it's been 3 years and a couple months, I think.
Yeah.
But finally, the time has come, and Edward decides he's worked enough, and so he goes. At the end of the day, he goes to the trailer. We see the trailer rocking back and forth, and it's kind of a mislead because he opens the door and a wolf jumps out.
Yes. In fact, that trailer is shaking the same way that there was a scene in Batman Returns where the Penguin was inside a little trailer like that, and it was shaking the same way.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we also see clowns playing poker as he approaches the trailer.
we do see clowns playing poker, like the picture, the
Yep.
painting.
One of them's Mr. Soggy Bottom.
Yes, Mr. Soggy is there. However, now that the wolf has jumped out and it attacks Edward, Mr. Soggy Bottom jumps into gear and grabs a gun with a single bullet.
Out of a compartment in the front of his outfit.
He's packing. And it took me a minute to catch what happens. He's going to shoot the wolf.
Yes, and I'm guessing that's a silver bullet. He's going to shoot the wolf.
Right. But Edward gets in the way and just takes it.
Yeah, you see a little tear coming down. Mr. Soggy Bottom's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know why this scene's funny to you. It's very sad.
Well, it's not like it's not like Edward jumps in the way or anything. Mr. Soggy Bottom is just a bad shot and hits him.
I thought he stepped into it.
I don't think so.
Okay, so I did see it right. 'Cause without context, if you're not really paying attention, it's like, oh, the werewolf got out. We don't have to shoot the wolf. We gotta kill this poor guy because he knows too much.
Oh no, no, the werewolf got out. They got to kill the werewolf. He's free. But he shoots Edward instead.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, Edward knows too much. You gotta go.
Oh,
But anyway, Edward realizes that no, he's just lonely, and so he plays fetch with the werewolf
for several hours.
several hours after being mauled.
Yep. He's got a big scratch on his face.
Yeah. And the next morning, we see a naked Danny DeVito come out of the woods.
Yes, we do. The man has no problem with nudity.
apparently. And he sits down and asks, or he asks Edward if he killed anything or hurt anybody, and he goes, a couple rabbits, but I think one was already dead.
He's like, that would explain the indigestion.
And then he gives them a blanket to cover himself with, and Amos sits down and it's like, I was wrong about you, kid, and tells Edward the name of the lady in the blue dress and where to find her, and then scratches his ear with his foot, just because that's funny.
It is.
And so we cut to, was it Auburn? The Auburn school, college,
Yeah.
Auburn University.
Auburn. Yep.
Yeah. And he knocks on the door of the sorority house. Edward does, not Amos. Edward.
Yeah. Edward's there. I don't have a follow up. He's there. He knocks on the door. Just like, I'm here.
And he's got daffodils.
He does have daffodils because he learned that was her favorite flower.
And he opens the door, and she opens the door, and he's like, "You don't know me," and gives his whole speech about how he loves her and he's gonna marry her, and he's been working for 3 years just to be able to find her, and he's been trampled, kicked, beaten, stabbed. He was shot twice, or shot
Yeah.
once, and stabbed twice. Or no,
Yep.
he had his ribs broken twice. Like he's very happy about it apparently.
Yeah. He's like, I put it in the time.
and and he's like, but it's all worth it just to be here talking to you. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm engaged to be married to a guy from your town. I actually know who you are by reputation. And it turns out it's his rival,
Yeah. Whose name I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Dean Portman.
No. That's from Mighty Ducks.
Don Price.
Okay. Dean Portman.
Hey, Don Price, I did get it right.
You did.
Yeah. And so apparently, he walks away defeated, and we hear old Ed narrating over the top how, sometimes in life a man's gotta know when to fight for what he wants, or know when he's been beaten and to give up, and only a fool would continue. But then again, he's always been a fool.
Yeah.
And so we see Obi-Wan turn around and profess his love and his level of commitment to never leave her alone until he gets what he wants. Which
I will be as bad as that cartoon skunk.
pretty much that's what we get to. Because I even have in my notes, he won't take no for an answer and gets a bit stalkery, but she likes him, so it's sweet.
Yes. And he's not handsy.
And he's not handsy. Yes, that helpful.
Yeah.
And finally, it gets to a point of where he buys all the daffodils in 5 states and creates a field of daffodils out in front of her, the sorority house when she lives.
Yep.
Which is apparently what does it for her. That, and then she goes, "You don't even know me," and he responds with, "I have the rest of my life to find out," which apparently is a super romantic line, and is what seals it that she loves this man now. And then Dawn shows up, and she's like, she tells Edward not to hurt him, and he goes, "Okay, I promise."
Yeah.
To which he receives just the beating of a lifetime.
Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, Dawn.
Hey, how you doing?
What are you doing here? That's my girl.
Yeah. And so he stays true to his word and just gets beaten up, and that apparently does it for Sandra Templeton.
Yeah. Well, and Dawn's going off about how she's his girl and his property, basically. And Edward's like, that's funny. I didn't think you could own people.
Yeah. So they had to make him unlikable.
Yeah.
Because you got to root for this guy because he's stealing another man's girlfriend.
Right, but Don's kind of a tool.
Yeah. He is. And then we cut back to present day. And what?
The beating that Don gave him exasperated the condition of his heart.
Did it?
Huh?
Of Don's heart?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then he had the heart attack that night.
Oh, it was that night he has the heart attack.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they never see Don again.
Right.
That's why he brings it up. It's like the beating exerted his heart and exasperated his condition, and his heart just couldn't take it that evening.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
I thought it was showing a few years down the road.
No. And that's not how I saw it.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. Was that it
Ah,
was a couple years down the road. I was just gonna completely gloss over Don's death, but
heart attack.
yeah, he had a heart attack.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah.
but we already saw it once, so I just figured not bring it up again. We
That's
already
funny.
mentioned it, but
We
anyway,
did, but
yeah, we did.
I mean, he
Yeah,
saw it
sure,
first.
sure.
Mhm. Yeah, sure.
So anyway, we come back to present day, and he's still chatting with Josephine, but we get a little snippet of William coming up the stairs and sitting outside the room and listening, and then we get back into the past
Yeah,
where Edward is
see,
drafted into the Korean War,
good old Eddie. Yeah, drafted into the Korean War.
and then I like that they didn't waste any time. They're like, I was drafted, and then he's like, I'm taking every. I'd already waited 3 years to meet her, and now I gotta go again. So he's taking every dangerous mission he could think of to get home as soon as possible, probably to get medical discharge.
Yeah, he realized he can't die. Well, he's not going to die for a while. I mean, he took several injuries in the circus. Like, let's take one in Korea and get home.
Yeah, because he knew nothing was gonna kill him there, and so he's they're doing the parachute thing, and he's waiting. The guy's watching him like, "Are you gonna go?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, and then winks at the guy, and then jumps
Yeah.
and lands in enemy territory during a what looks like a talent show.
Yeah, I guess it's a Korean USO show.
Yeah, it looks like. They do not like the ventriloquist. I don't I don't speak Korean,
That they do not
so
like the
I
ventriloquist.
do not know what is being said, but at some point, like 4 or 5 guards come up to him and escort him off stage.
Fun fact:
Yes.
Tim Burton still has that dummy.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much. Yeah, they did not like him. And then, uh, there's the next act is conjoined twins singing. Edward's back there getting some papers, and he beats up a bunch of enemy troops, which is funny.
It is.
'Cause he's got they show off with their martial art moves, and he's like, hold on 1 second, and he puts on his glasses, shuts the light off, and beats him up in the dark. So then they're conjoined twins,
Mm-hmm.
and they finish their set, and they catch Edward back there. He's
That they do.
hiding in their costuming. This was CGI, and it was not great when they were on stage.
Yeah.
It looked a little, I wasn't horrible, but it looked a little, you could tell. But to sum it up,
It was
what
2003.
one of the ladies wants to sell him out, the other one doesn't, and then he tells his tale of love, and that softens their hearts towards him.
Yep.
And then he also says, so they wants to come up with a plan to go back to the United States, and they're like, why would we want to go to the United States? And he's like, because I know the biggest name in show business. And they're like, Bob Hope? Which, shout out to Bob Hope.
Yeah, USO show.
USO show. Yeah, exactly. For those of you who don't know, Bob Hope was famous for his USO tour, which was essentially comedians and famous people would go overseas and perform for our troops.
Yes. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, there's pretty much nothing to add to that.
I don't remember what USO stands for.
I just remember the bit on Friends. Bob Hope, USO.
It's USA, sir.
Sir. And if that was a joke back in 2004, oh no, that was 20 years ago. But he says the guy he knows is bigger than Bob Hope, and they will get him. He will get them into show business.
It's the United Service Organizations.
Oh, that makes sense. So then we cut to Sandra Bloom now, because they're married at this point.
Yes,
Right?
because we didn't say that we didn't touch on this, but they used the same venue and date and everything that Sandra and Don were going to use, but at this time the groom has changed. So
And
Sandra
right,
and
and
Edward.
right, and when we cut back to present day, we cut that it's Josephine saying, "I didn't think you got married in a church," calling him out on his story maybe not being completely true.
Yeah,
And then that's what gets us back into present day, and he talks about how you tell stories and you don't tell them all at once, because if you tell them all at once, they're not intricate, but they're also not interesting.
yeah.
So, but anyway, so we cut to he's narrating and he goes, "The army thought he was dead since since it was a secret mission to get back, and he basically went AWOL."
Right. He's like, I've had enough of this. I can
Yeah,
I'm not getting hurt. I'm not getting sent home. Let's get out of here.
right. And so he had no way to communicate to back home. So the army thinks he's dead. And
Yeah.
so we cut to that and his wife finding the news or getting told. And I'm sorry, she did not have to play this part so well
Yeah.
because we know he's fine.
Yes, we do.
And her reaction still kicks you in the stomach.
It does.
And back to my point, she did not have to play that so well.
But she did, and it was good.
That was great. Yeah, she committed wholly to that part.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to 4 months later, and he's talking about how she'd been through the worst of it, and he makes it home. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
draw that out. He makes it home. She sees his shadow through the bed sheets that she's hanging up to dry in the yard.
Because that's what you did in the 50s,
Sure.
60s.
Yeah. And so he's there.
The Korean War was from 50 to 53, so we are now officially in the 50s.
Okay.
That was it.
So now we're at present day. It's morning, and Will and Josephine are talking about Ed's stories. Josephine finds them endearing. She enjoys them. William does not.
No, William is over it. Still over it.
Yeah. Now we're at breakfast time, present day. And Edward asks if they've heard the story of the maple tree and the Buick. They have.
Yes.
Josephine even risks because Edward's like, I could think of someone who hasn't heard the story. And then Josephine chimes in and tells the story, and he just kind of, takes all the air out of his balloon. And then we cut back again to upstairs. William sits down and asks his dad if he knows about icebergs. And so Edward starts telling a story about icebergs, and William's sick of it and interrupts him. And Edward tells him, William's like, I'm trying to make a metaphor, make a point. And Edward's like, well, then don't lead with a question. People want to answer questions, which I thought was funny, but that sparks an argument. And then we cut to William cleaning the pool, and he's grumpy. And then we see a big fish. And
It's
then
another big fish.
another big fish. And then it cuts to them, Josephine, mom, or Sandra, his mom, and William in the garage, and they need to clean it out.
Yeah.
And Sandra basically says that William would know what's important more than she would, and she finds the Western Union telegram from the army from when they thought that Edward was dead, which makes William pause and go, wait a minute, that really happened? And Sandra responds with, not everything your father says is made up,
Yes.
which gets him to think.
Yes, it gets him to think. And it's something I touched on earlier in this episode that need to look at it and find the line of what happened versus what was exaggerated for the story.
Right. Because William, at this point, he pretty much thinks that his dad just tells blatant lies all the time.
Which is why he's like, I don't even know you. Everything you've ever told me is a lie. And
Right. Going back actually a couple scenes when they have that conversation
yeah,
where he's telling his dad he just wants him to be himself, and his dad tells him, I've been myself since the day I was born. If you can't see that, that's your problem.
yeah,
Which he's right. I'm kind of on Edward's side here. Not to.
yep,
So we get back to Ed's story, Edward's
yes,
story, about how now that he's out of the army, he becomes a traveling salesman for some. Oh, because William sees the weird robot hand thing.
yep,
And we find out Edward becomes a traveling salesman for those weird robot hand things. And so we do a bit of a montage, right?
yep.
I would say a montage of him traveling
Selling
around
and
and see him giving sales pitches at conventions and all that.
yeah, yeah. He seems very, very much like the dad from Gremlins at this point.
Yeah, a little bit. And then we see Ed at a bank, and he's standing behind none other than Northern Winslow. And he's in Texas.
The poet in
The
his
poet.
new. So yeah, part of the montage, he's saying he's getting new territories and stuff for him to sell in, getting new things to sell, and he ends up in Texas as new territory.
Right. Yeah. So, and then he chats with Northern, and Northern's like, "Hey, after you left, I left too, and now I'm every day is a new adventure." And he's like, "That's great, Northern. What are you doing here in Texas?" And he leans in and goes, "I'm robbing the bank." And then he pulls out 2 revolvers and proceeds to rob the bank. And then
and
and he brings Edward into it because he's a nice guy. He's hey, pick up that gun, would you? I go okay, and just kind of forces him into robbing the bank with him.
yeah, it's like I'm gonna take the tills. You take my associate here to the vault, and we'll convene when we're done.
Yeah,
Not to keep
and
making comparisons to things, but this it reminded me of Oh Brother Where Art Thou
yes, it does very much.
with Babyface Nelson. He's like, come on,
Not
boys.
Babyface. It's George Nelson.
You're right. George Nelson. I'll show the respect, even though you didn't like the movie.
I didn't hate the movie. It's just there were things about it that it
Okay.
one of those movies that'll live in my past.
But yes, it reminded me of George Nelson.
Yes, I can see that. But then we find out that the bank is broke. There's no money in the vault.
Yes, it's been robbed by different people,
Yes, and so they leave.
and those
And
people are
and Northern doesn't have a plan.
no.
He runs out of the bank and just starts running on the street. Edward hops into his car and I was like, Northern, get over here. And they peel out and take off. Peel
Yep.
off.
They peel off.
And so Northern's counting the loot that he got from the till, and he's like, $400. Man, I can't imagine how much you have from the vault. And he hands him the baggie, I guess.
Yeah.
And Northern opens it up, and he's like, $60. And it's got your deposit slip attached to it.
It's like, well, I didn't want you to feel.
I don't want you to leave empty-handed.
Yeah, taking care of his friend.
Yeah, nice gesture. And then he goes into a whole explanation on bank loans and fiduciary stuff and a bunch of jargon.
Why
that-
the bank doesn't have money, and it's because of real estate investment and big greedy business.
Essentially, that's what it boils down to. And so Northern deduces from that all the money is at Wall Street, and that's where he's going to go.
Yep.
And we find out that when Northern makes his first million, he gives Ed a check for $10,000, but and Edward tries to decline it, but Northern says it's his fee for being his financial advisor,
Yes.
which leads him to accept it. And I glossed over earlier that Edward was saving his money to buy his wife her dream house with a white picket fence, and that $10,000 that he gets from Northern was enough to do so. And so we see Mrs. Sandra Bloom, with a very unfortunate haircut in the yard of her new house with the white picket fence, and Edward is taking off to go back to traveling sales.
Yeah, $10,000. That he's paying off the house right there in the 60s.
With $10,000, he's paying off a house. No, he's not.
In the 60s? Yeah.
In the 60s, houses weren't $10,000 in the 60s.
50s or 60s?
Figure it.
Yeah.
Average cost of a house in 60. Yikes!
How much?
About 12,000.
Okay, so depending on the house, the area, it's 10,000 probably paid off the whole house.
Yeah.
So now the average price of houses since the 60s have gone up at least 600%.
Even adjusting for inflation, that's only $123,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's why there was the housing crisis in 2008.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess Marshall was right on that. So we cut back to present day, and Ed is in his pajamas in the bathtub.
Yes, he is. He needed water.
He's afraid he's gonna dry out. And then we get Sandra comes in there with him, and she climbs into the tub in her pajamas as well, and they snuggle. And
Yeah,
they have
very cute.
And then it gets sad.
It does.
They're both still avoiding the inevitable.
They just don't talk about that.
They just don't talk about it, and she's having trouble with it.
Yeah.
But then we cut to William. What?
I was just trying to think about how old he is. If
70.
he was 60 to 70, around there, I'd say.
I'd say right around 70.
Okay. He had his son a little later in life, I guess.
Yeah,
And-
well, I
and
mean,
he's-
William
and he's
looks
not-
like he's in his 30s.
Yeah, I guess he'd be in his 30s.
Yeah, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, William finds a deed, or the deeds for the town inspector, or a house inspector.
Yes.
A house in the town inspector, not a deed for a house inspector.
No, he
You
finds a
can't buy
deed
those.
for a house that's in Spectre, the city.
Yes. Yes.
And and he's like, "Aha!"
I've got him. So
Yeah,
he
he's
drives to Spectre,
yes, he does.
to Jenny's house.
Yes, to confront his dad's
Jenny.
past, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
essentially. Well, he thinks his dad was having an affair and had a whole second life.
Yes, and that all his stories and everything is just kind of a way to cover everything.
Right. And so he meets Jenny. She invites him in, and he sits down and asks if he was having an affair with his with. Wow, that would go really wrong.
Were you having an affair
He
with my husband?
he sits down and asks Jenny if his dad was cheating on his mom,
Right,
was
right.
being unfaithful.
Are you the other family?
Right.
Basically.
And she's taken aback, and she's like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna dance around this, but you're just gonna go for it, okay?" And so she tells him all about how he ended up
Back inspector.
back inspector. No, he was inspector.
not, not a back inspector. He ended up
In the,
inspector yet
back
again.
in the town of Spectre with his car getting flooded off the road and landing up in a tree. I like how she's telling stories exaggerated, like Edward did.
Well, because she's heard the stories.
Right. Well, she was there for this one,
Well,
but
yeah,
so
but I'm
he
sure he said he's talked about it. It's like
fair.
that's how I ended up here. This happened, and
Anyway, so she's telling the story of how he came back to Spectre and it was just in ruins. They had built a road through it, and that had the town that was once just everything was free became a selling post for travelers.
yep,
And then inflation drove up the cost of everything, and everybody and everything in the town went bankrupt.
yeah,
So Edward pooled all of his resources together to buy the town.
yes. He started up a trust and an investment group, which was he talked to everybody that we've
Yeah,
seen so far. Um,
Northern, the Amos.
the conjoined twins,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah,
getting anybody to help invest.
and to keeping the town what it had always been and making sure it wouldn't change.
Right, right. And his plan is just buy it up and let people do what they do.
Right, and let it just be.
Yep.
And then he starts fixing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. He's helping out. He's fixing it up. He's buying it up,
Yep. He
making everybody
explains.
happy.
Yeah, he explains the order he has to go through in order to buy the town up proper.
Hmm.
And he realizes there's one house that he didn't buy.
Yep.
He goes and talks to the lady. He doesn't realize it's Jenny. She's mad at him because he didn't come back soon enough.
Yeah.
He figures out who she is, and she won't sell him the house, but he fixes it up anyway.
Right. Gets Carl to help.
Yeah. And as time goes on, he's fixing more and more things, and she's warming up to him. And then
Yeah. He
for the
basically
house,
he basically flips her house.
yeah. And she starts to fancy him. And then she makes a little bit of a move, and he shoots her down.
Yeah. Well, she's always fancied him.
Sure. She makes a move.
Yeah.
He shoots her down without even thinking about it. And that's when around that time, she mentions, or then she, signs over the house to him.
Yeah.
Because he needs everything in order for the trust to hold.
Right. Right. Now that everything is in the trust, it can just keep doing what it's doing and maintain.
Right. And then we cut back to present day again, and they're wrapping up their conversation, and Jenny mentions that according to Edward Bloom, there are only two women in the world, his wife and everybody else,
Yeah.
which tells you pretty much all you need to know.
Yep.
And, of course, the way we've seen him talk about his wife throughout the whole movie, you know that he ain't stepping out on her.
No, this is it's and it shoots down one of his son's theories.
Yeah, it does. So then Will heads home.
Yep.
And the
And
house
nope.
is empty, and we
Yep.
see the phone blinking with a message. And we cut to the hospital where Josephine is waiting for Will to let him know that his dad has had a stroke and is upstairs. They're all talking with the doctor that delivered William, and apparently Edward has not woken up yet, but he sends pretty much everybody home. William says he will stay in case Dad wakes up and will call if anything happens.
Yep. And he's like, I got this. You go rest.
Yep. So Sandra goes in and says goodbye, and then we cut to what I believe is hours later,
I think so.
where Will's just sitting in the room and the doctor comes in and asks if William knows the real story of how he was born.
Yes.
And William, of course, doesn't, and so the doc tells him the real version. And William's actually relieved to hear it, which I kind of get.
Yeah.
Because as much as the tall tales would be fun and whatnot, it would be nice to know the unexaggerated story of a few things.
So we get that he was out of town. She went into labor early, and even if he had been there back then, men weren't allowed in the delivery room, so it wouldn't have done much good for him to be there anyway.
Right. Yeah. The epic story of a fish and a wedding ring is much better than he was born a week early with no complications.
Yes. I mean,
But I could get to where,
yeah.
just
I
having
mean,
it, just having that normal story or knowing the truth.
yeah, could have been fishing that day. It was a week
Okay.
early, and he had no idea.
Yeah. But then time goes on from there.
Yep.
And Dad actually wakes up. And the first word he says is the river.
Yeah, he's not doing good either.
No, he's on his way out.
Yeah.
He asks Will to tell him how it happens. And Will's like, what are you talking about? He goes, the eye? What you saw in the eye? And he's like, yeah, tell me how it happens.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know. You never told me that story, or you never
Yeah.
told me what you saw.
Well, and then, yeah, so he's like, how does it go? Oh, yeah, William's like, well, at least tell me how it starts. And Edward's like, it starts like this. And so we get William just making up this story of how it's the morning time, he wakes up, and his dad is like better and different. And he's like, we got to get out of here. And so William grabs Edward, throws him in the wheelchair, and they got to escape this floor, and then they're home free. And so they running down the hall, and Mom and Josephine show up, and they're being chased by orderlies. And as they pass, Edward goes, stall him. And so she takes a cart and levels two orderlies.
Yeah.
They hop in the elevator and go down to the parking lot, and Edward's old red Charger is there.
Yep.
William picks him up, chucks him in the car.
It's a good looking car.
It is a nice looking car. It's all brand new, and Edward's
All
like, leave
fixed
the
up.
wheelchair. We don't need it. And so Edward hops in, starts driving, and he goes, where am I going? And Edward goes, the river. And so William starts driving to the river, and he's not sure they're driving down, and he's like, oh, I was thinking about going through town, but I remembered that it's church time and church drivers suck, so we're gonna take the bridge.
Yeah. That's good paraphrasing.
What did he say?
He said the church drivers are slow. But yeah, church drivers suck.
Church drivers are slow. That might be nicer.
But yeah, they head up the bridge.
Head up the bridge, and then there's a traffic jam, and then Carl comes out of nowhere and flips a car out of the way. And I love that the lady screams. It's so good. Ah! And then, Edward leans out and waves to Carl.
Carl nods and
Carl nods and waves back. And then they park at the river, and William gets out and picks up his dad, and he's running down, and everybody from all the stories he's ever told are lined up, creating like this little pathway.
yeah, everybody's there.
To see Edward off. And they get down to the river, and he's waving, says goodbye to everybody, and then Sandra's in the river waiting for him, and he says goodbye to his what does he call her? His woman in the lake.
Yeah, his lady in the lake.
Lady in the lake. Takes off his wedding ring, hands it to her, lays back, and William lowers him down into the water, and he turns into a fish and swims away. And then we cut back to present day, where Edward agrees and then dies.
Yes. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, what did he see in that eye? I know we're calling this tall tales and everything, but say
Sure.
he did see something out of it. Are we thinking that he saw what his son told him? Or was he thinking that he saw himself laying in a bed talking with his son?
I think he saw his son telling him the story.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, he agrees, and he goes, yeah, exactly, the story of my life.
Like, this is it.
Fun fact, that scene absolutely wrecks my wife every time.
Yeah. That is a fun back.
Um, so William calls mom, and it's a pretty sharp cut actually to the funeral,
Yeah, it is.
and I love the funeral scene.
It's a great scene, and
It
gives
can
Willie it gives William a bit of clarity.
Yeah, where because everyone from the stories shows up, so he knows that every single one of the stories his dad told was true to an extent.
Yes, we see Carl the Giant. He's not 15 feet tall, but he's a 7.5 foot man who's towers over everybody.
Right. We
Um,
see that the Korean twins were not conjoined, but they were in fact twins.
right, and I mean, I'm sure it turned into that over time. But you say, I met a pair of twins who were connected at the hip, like you'd say about friends or siblings, and then
Right, they did everything together. They were that close. They were joined at the hip.
yep, and so and whether it was right away or over time, they became conjoined twins at the hip.
Yeah, the metaphor became literal.
Yep. Yep.
Thing,
So,
and as you tell the story, I mean, things change in the story, and we see, yeah. And
and
Josephine is his sense of reason because she notices things before he does, and she has to point it out to him.
yeah, it's like, look at that really tall guy, the little guys.
Yeah, not a real bright one, that William.
Oh, he's grumpy and bitter.
Yeah, he is. But we get, it's and there's no. I like that there's no sound. You just see people talking, and they do the funeral part, and you see everyone lined up there watching Edward's last send off.
Yeah,
And then after all that, you see everyone chatting and telling. I assume they're telling story. They're telling their version of his stories.
right. And we've been saying tall tales this whole time, but
Yeah,
they're fish stories.
I was saving that for the reveal at the end.
Oh, okay. Cut that out, and we'll fix it in post.
No, it's fine. You can have it.
I was just thinking about that. I'm like, these are fish stories.
Yes.
It's a big fish.
Yes. Actually, we glossed over that. The William ends the story of his dad's passing with "You end up being what you always were, a big fish."
Yes.
And then we get Steve Buscemi telling a very dramatic story. It looks like, and Josephine and William show up, and they hear it. I guess.
Then talking about the time that he and his dad, he and Edward robbed a bank.
Maybe, but he also says, and then he punched me right in the mouth. It looked like.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Could have been a Wall Street story.
Anything. But then the camera pans up and you get William narrating over the top of it how have you ever heard a joke so many times that you forgot why it's funny, and then you hear it again and suddenly it's funny again. And that was his dad's basic last joke was the man tells the story so many times that eventually he becomes the story. And then we cut to, I'm assuming, the 10 years in the future, or 5 years, or yeah, about 10 years in the future, I'd say. 8
Kid's
years in
about
the
10,
future.
10 to
Kid's
8.
about 8 to 10, and we have a kid telling his friends, I guess,
Yeah.
his grandpa's stories, and dad's there barbecuing. He's like, "Yep, that's what happened to grandpa."
Yep.
And then we see the big fish in the pool, and that cuts to a lake, and then we roll credits,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was Big Fish.
That was Big Fish.
You want to give your final thoughts on Big Fish?
I do.
Okay. I
I
hate this movie. No.
no. I saw this movie back in the early 2000s when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. It's something. And I mean, part of the podcast is looking at movies we saw as a child and kind of seeing where they're at now with us. And this hits a lot differently for me than it did back then. Before it was fun. It was just a fun movie with tall tales. Like, yeah, this is great. But I still really enjoyed the movie. I
Yeah.
had a lot of fun with it. I'm gonna watch it again. Edward reminded me of Grandpa so much.
Yeah, he did.
The stories and just his how he is. I'm like, okay, that, and just seeing it as, I guess the legacy of it, or I don't know if I've made any point.
No.
No, no. But the tale of the father and son, the I mean, because you can see every time that William met somebody, they're like, "Oh, hey, you're William, right?" And he's like, how do you know?" Like, "Oh, your dad showed me pictures." And it is as much as he told tall tales and was there for everybody. He loved his family. He was always. It seems like he was always talking about his family and telling people other stories about them as well as his own self. So, um, getting the it's more heartfelt and it hits me in the feels a bit more than it did.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if I made any points there, but it's
We know you liked it.
yeah. What about you?
So I did not see this movie when it first came out. Rachel had me watch it for the first time, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And the first time I saw it, I had trouble following it.
Okay.
I've seen it a couple times since then, and each time I watch it, I love it more. And each time I watch it, it hits me in the feels a whole lot harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I was thinking, I go, every family's got a storyteller, and I was like, well, yeah, Grandpa liked to
Yeah.
tell his stories, and yeah, it reminded me. I could see that
Yep.
comparison very
Growing up on
very
the
much so.
farm, over in Germany,
Yeah,
California for a while,
yep,
grandma in Montana. It's
yeah. I mean, it's all there.
yeah. But
Yeah, and that.
and I over the many watches, I like trying to pick out like what's the true bits and what's the fabrications.
Oh
Clear,
yeah,
clearly the werewolf was the fabrication, but I mean you get this circus ringmaster, and it starts out with this guy was a wild man. Who would, I mean, after performances, maybe he gets drunk, maybe he gets on something, and he starts going crazy, and it turns into he's a werewolf.
right. Yeah, trying to figure out how he could have possibly gotten from A to B.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
final product started out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a fun way to do it. I think I'm gonna employ that going forward when I
Yeah, I
watch
mean,
it because I will
clearly,
watch this again.
Carl's a big guy. Clearly, he's a drifter that wandered into town, and maybe he wasn't eating sheep and people's dogs, but he was picking through the trash, and he just eating scraps where he could find it. Maybe
Yeah,
stealing chickens or eggs from people,
yeah,
and it just grew from there. It's like this guy was huge. He had to be 7 feet tall, and a few years later, he had to be like at least 10 feet tall. And by the time you're telling this story all the time, this giant at 15 feet tall was eating eating
yeah,
the town's pets, and so I had a lot of fun with that too.
yeah. I mean, it's every time I see it, I'm just like, I like it better.
Yeah,
Yeah, you and I have never talked about it, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pick it for the
we
podcast
ha-
because I thought it would be fun to actually sit down and talk about it.
yeah, yeah. I don't yeah, we don't think we've ever really talked about it. I mean, it's like you said, you never saw it. I mean, it came out in 2003, so I was out of the house too when I saw it. So, um,
Yeah, and I was too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not that funny.
Not for you.
You just had to twist it a little bit.
A little bit.
Dig into it a little bit, yeah.
Uh, um,
Jerk.
yeah, but yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with this movie. Fun fact I forgot to mention: the fish at the beginning of the movie talks a little bit. It says a couple things. Just, I mean, not really, but and that was voiced by Johnny Depp.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That is a fun fact.
good friends with
Tim Burton,
Tim Burton. I mean,
because he's been obnoxiously been in many Tim
I
Burton
think he's been
films.
in like 5 Tim Burton movies at this moment. At this point, 5 or 6, because he was in both Alice in Wonderlands, Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in the Looking Glass, which
He's
Tim
in
Burton
Edward
direct.
Edward
Edward
Scissorhands,
Scissorhands. Yep, he was
Charlie
in
and the
Sweeney.
Chocolate Factory.
Yep, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Sweeney Todd. Also, Sleepy Hollow. Okay, so we're at 6 now.
Yeah.
Uh, the Corpse Bride. He did the voice of Victor in that.
Okay. So yeah, he's done a lot with Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's all I have on.
Yeah, that's all. I think that's all I've got on it too.
Oh
It
yeah, I
was a
did like yeah
lot of
the point of I like that at the end of the day, William realized that Dad's still your dad.
Yeah.
And it started out with him not being able to see any similarities of themselves in each other. And I think that's why told the story of the eye
Yeah.
was going to be his passing his legacy onto William. It was going to be his
I see
story to
that.
tell. He was going to pass one thing on to his son, and it was going to be his ability to tell stories, and he was going to
Yeah.
start with that one
Yeah.
because
Yeah. And
that's William's story now. That was
it
the
is.
first one that he came up with.
Yeah. Well, and,
And
and something we didn't touch on earlier is when they were sitting there talking to each other. His dad said, "We're both storytellers. I'm just vocal about William's journalist."
something like that, yeah,
Yeah, and then his wife takes pictures.
yeah. So
Um,
it's all there. It's just that last bit of it is where everything falls into place and all the dots connect.
yeah, yeah, and the funeral scene was fun to see because you see everybody's there. People are talking, and Jenny's there talking with Sandra, um, and there's just the groups of people. They're all telling their stories and um, talking to the others about what Edward meant to them, basically.
Yeah. And I like that in the story, everybody was the same age as they were when the stories took place.
Oh yeah, it's like everybody's there, and yeah, you get
Everyone's that age still. And then then you get to the funeral scene and you have that moment where Danny DeVito, I think he's the first one,
yeah, he's got
steps
the
out
white
of
hair.
and he's got and he looks old and you're like, "Oh yeah." And then you start seeing everybody else come out and you can recognize them from the stories, but they're all, I don't want to say normalized, but yeah, they all are how they really are
Yeah,
and aged and everything. So it was fun. It's a great movie.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Tim Burton did a good job
He did. I
with it.
think yeah, as we talked about at the beginning, I think he was the right director for this. He brought the whimsy a little bit more than I think Spielberg would have. Also, he wanted Jack Nicholson to play Edward.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. I think that wraps up our final thoughts.
yeah, I don't think I have anything else on that one.
So, Marshall,
Yes.
what's next?
So, this movie is a movie that I saw a couple times growing up. And it fits kind of in the theme of Indiana Jones. It's more serialized. It's got that Hero of Tomorrow feel for it. And I haven't seen it in ages, and I think it'd be fun to revisit. I'm not even sure if you remember seeing this.
Short Circuit?
No. That does not have an Indiana Jonesy feel to it.
I know. That was the joke guess.
Yeah. But we are gonna watch The Rocketeer.
Oh, fun. I just watched that recently.
Did you? Oh, good. You should be caught up then.
I think Rachel and I talked about watching it.
Yeah, but it's got Jennifer Connelly, Timothy Dalton, Bill Campbell. So, unless that's the guy who's no. Yeah, Bill Campbell.
Dad really likes this movie.
Yeah,
We watched it with Dad growing up.
I think yeah, that might have been Dad. But I mean, most of the time we rented new movies, we watched with Mom and Dad first, unless it was something we went
Yeah. I remember
went with,
Dad
and
talking about the Rocketeer.
probably yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it'll be fun.
Sounds good.
Okay,
All right. The Rocketeer it is.
nice.
Well, thank you to all those who joined us as we went through a long series of fish stories. If you'd like to, you could like us, you could rate us, you could review us, and you could subscribe to us. That actually helps us, get out there more and get known better. If you'd like to reach out to us personally, you can do so. watchitbropodcast@gmail.com. We are also on the X, formerly known as Twitter, under at watchitbropod. We are also on Facebook and Instagram under that same handle. Our intro and outro music is now provided by my lovely wife, that intro being Blue, that outro being Orlando. And as always, thank you for watching.